And I am really going to have to clean up their team play because giving Dark Wolf and especially a Hecarim those early advantages, it does not end well.
That's the crazy thing, is that it felt like draft-wise, IM did fine. They went to the same sort of win conditions with the double teleport. Maybe there's an argument they didn't have enough damage, but if the early game was executed in a different manner, things would have been a lot closer, and they had that late-game trump card of the double TP. So I'd like to see them stick with basically the same idea, maybe up the damage a little bit, but it felt like the execution was by far the problem in Game 2, rather than necessarily the drafting phase.
Well, in this draft, Dark Wolves now considering, do they want to ban out Victor, which they banned out in Game 1, or Kalista? They are going to ban out the Victor, so Elise and Kalista still up. And we will see that Elise first picked once again for Incredible Miracle, but this will open up the chance for a possible Kalista pick here from the Dark Wolves.
It's fun to see Kalista, coming into these drafts, being available after the bans, after being basically pick ban status since her release. Such has been the furor and popularity of the that particular Kalista pick. So interesting to see if Chelly does pick it up. Chelly and Jelly with the Kalista lane will be fun. We'll say those names a lot, given that Kalista often plays around her support.
Yeah, and do you just go ahead and take the Alistar-Kalista combo here? You do not have to take the Lee Sin that early if you don't want to, but instead it will be the Braum once again, taking all 3 games so far by the Dark Wolves.
Always risky to open up a second Kalista pick from a top-level AD carry like Sunstar, but that being said, Sunstar didn't really make much happen, opted into a very low-damage build. Play the Ruin King by far is the most common first item pickup, and against a Hecarim, you'd think the defensive utility of the Play the Ruin King active was more than the extra sustain or overshield provided by the Bloodthirster. It feels like you're still going to get burst down, but it's a return to Kalista for Sunstar, but this time with the pick support rather than necessarily the playmaking. So I guess both playmaking, but just a little bit different in the Thresh.
Yeah, and we've all seen, of course, those impressive highlights of Ignar's Thresh play, and he'll be mixing it up this time. Alistar will be falling through the draft for the first time in this series. So Dark Wolves now, where are they going to go with this? They could go ahead and take that Lucian. Didn't have the biggest success with it in game number 1, but it has been a staple pick for Chelly.
The only reason we can speculate that Lee Sin and Braum were taken so early in the draft, I mean, Braum, understandable given the power of that support, but you pick jungle and support if you want to go in full counter pick mode. You want to see as much information as possible before you commit to one of your core laners. Lucian does have a good laning matchup against the Kalista, and Sunstar didn't cover himself in glory like we mentioned in the previous game, and we should not be surprised if the blind pick Hecarim continues.
More Hecarim. I mean, we've just seen so much of this from the Dark Wolves. And with that Rumble ban, it seems like that's just where Cube is going to go until Hecarim is taken away or banned in this series.
I mean, Rumble, Gangplank, Fiora, all off the board. I believe Gangplank and Fiora both can do painful things to a Hecarim. The carry top laners feel like they are the way to push past this Hecarim to really equalize his weak laning phase. I'd love to see a Nocturne, but I don't think it's time.
I'd love to see the Gnar. I mean, if we look at the way that IM played in Champions, the Gnar was frequently banned against Expression. We know it's one of his best champions. We know it's a great matchup against the Hecarim. That's why I was so surprised to see the Maokai in the last game, because we know what Expression can do on this pick.
Yeah, Maokai's the even laning matchup, maybe even can fall behind a Hecarim after a couple of items, but Gnar is the one who can build Frozen Mallet, hell, pile on with the Black Cleaver and really boss around a Hecarim. So looking for the lane supremacy. Expression did get his hands on the Gnar a bit towards the end of the season with mixed results, but the first performances and the subsequent bans showed that this is definitely one of his main meta champions, because this guy still does love to move over to the likes of Jackson Shyvana when he gets the license to by his team.
Well, Diana will be blind picked here for Frozen, so going back to the champion that saw him a lot of success in the first game. And so what is Jelly's answer going to be? Jelly for Kyle, I should say, did take the Jace in game 1, but that was a blind pick Jace, and now we're going to see where he goes with this. At the Azir band, the Victor band, the poke champions, Varus and Jace, that we know he plays, not great here, so the Orianna probably the safety pick.
Of course, this is famously a lane that Diana does well in. This was always a lane where Orianna had a massive advantage pre-6, and then it ended up being Diana favored. The Jace, honestly, in lane did fine, but they're going to stick on the Orianna, as I was trying to mention. first 5 levels, excellent for the Orianna, can boss around, deny some CS, chip out, but now on the teleport meta, that doesn't really count for as much. Chipping out of Diana is almost meaningless between Flask, 3 potions, and then a teleport back to mid lane, and then this lane always becomes Diana focused after 6.
Right, Frozen showing he can play defensively early on, not worried about missing a few CS as long as he can stay alive and just keep the pressure off of his turret in that laning phase. Did pretty well against the Victor, not really losing his turret so easily in that particular matchup. And Kyle opting perhaps for a cleanse on the Orianna here. It's a bit different considering that he really only has to worry about Cocoon.
I mean, if you have cleanse, it means that Tucson's probably not going to bother to gank for him. Maybe even put in a second point into your W. Don't even take E, the CC Moonfall effect, if you are the Diana. Just power farm through the lane.
Yeah. So not a lot of threat here. We'll see what these two teams can do in game number 3.
The clap. The clap is what is being put forward rather than necessarily the cheer in the voices. Some playful clapping by the Dark Horse fans who honestly should be overjoyed. They have picked up a game against the champions gatekeepers in IM, and IM have returned to a comp very reminiscent of their successful Game 1 comp. So can they just tone down the misfires in the early game and just power farm their way to victory this time out?
Yeah, very all-in composition too, with Kalista and Diana both approaching that back line, and Cube really going to have to do a good job of zoning out these carries from Incredible Miracle if they want to see some success here. They have a good amount of shields, but a little bit atypical of a Dark Wolves game, just not going for any kind of big poke.
Honestly, Hecarim focused again. Put the ball on Hecarim. If he gets big like he did in the previous game, between his damage and the Orianna damage, it should really boss around a fight, but he's the true ball carrier. I guess there's the potential that Lee Sin can also get in there and mess with the enemy team, but Hecarim focus is what got Dark Horse this far in the playoffs, and they just go for it again.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if Cube can take that early advantage. Definitely going to be a lot harder. We are going to see standard lanes here, as Expession will get that favorable matchup versus Hecarim, and we do see the pings going down. A little bit of a ward there by the Grump, and nobody from Dark Wolves showing on it quite yet. So they don't know that this is coming through, but IM looks like they want to take Krugs all the same.
You'd think Dark Wolves would be heavily incentivized to look for a lane swap, just given how painful this Gnar vs Hecarim matchup is. Honestly, I guess it gets worse with levels, so maybe it's not that big a factor to nurse through the early game, but the reality is every item timing Expession hits, if he's on an even footing, is just superior than what Hecarim can put out. The first phage is better than any initial item that Hecarim can pick up. The Frozen Mallet or the Black Cleaver blows away the Hecarim, and you can go double laning items in Black Cleaver into Frozen Mallet and just completely blow away the Hecarim. So if Cube can make us a believer this time, maybe we'll have to start slightly re-evaluating Hecarim in this meta, because he was gifted a big lead in the previous game. He's going to have to carve out a much more difficult one this time out.
Yeah, and the big difference between this game and the first one is that, oh, level 2 gank coming on through. Kervavi coming there with the Lee Sin. Now, can they finish this off? Do you see the Orianna getting some clockwork wind-up hits? Frozen may have to flash here, and yes, he will.
It's a battle of holding on to spells, holding on to the Q, knowing it could potentially be flash, but defensive flash used by the Diana only has teleport now, so no other laning summoners, so going to have to be slightly more defensive in the early game, and if Kyle can get a freeze as the minion wave is now heavily pushed into his side, he's in a really happy spot here in mid lane.
Yeah, he is. Will need some help from the Elise to really do much in that particular instance, but
to cleanse Orianna pre-6, that doesn't sound like much fun.
No, just pushing out at the very least to break the freeze. But when we look at the matchup here, the Diana not going to have to go for the Zhonya's Hourglass first in this game, which means that the 1-3-1 can start a little bit sooner than in the last game, and hell, it proved very useful in game number 1, and a quick win for IM. So just going back to what was working, but the Kalista not the best in the mid lane in that 1-3-1, not the best siege. So not as ideal, I would say.
Let's try and uncover this cleanse Orianna we were talking about. It felt like, honestly, Orianna could have gone for Ignite, could have gone for Heal, could have gone even for Ghost for team fights. One of the reasons why maybe the cleanse not the worst idea is, let's think of a scenario where Frozen gets ahead. If Frozen gets ahead in this game, there's 2 split pushers that will be able to take out the Hecarim in the late game as Tucson and Lee Sin start fighting in the Lee Sin's jungle. But if there's a scenario where Diana gets ahead and can outdeal the Hecarim and Nara's always going to have that advantage, there's just no way to out-rotate this particular Longzhu IM comp. You just lose. So maybe it's just the ultimate safety and really putting them outside of a lose-lose situation, but still really tough as Lee Sin, he's got a lot of lane to work with here.
Okay, and now Expression gonna get ganked a little bit. There comes the flash from the Gnar. He's in Mega Gnar now, but he is going to fall first blood to Curvavy. Tucson just there a tad bit too late.
And worryingly misses another cocoon with the flash onto 2 potential members there. It wouldn't have mattered, but not been impressed with the mechanical skill of Tucson this series. And honestly, he's a great jungle Nidalee player. His line skill shot play is usually one of the highlights of his jungling.
Yeah, very odd, actually, that the cocoon hit rate has been so low for Tucson, but another nice gank. Curvavy, this is the champion, the Lee Sin, that I wanted to see him play because he does act so aggressively with this pick. And again, not the kill going to the Hecarim, but it is getting him ahead, and there's a nice hook, but there's not a lot of follow-up from Sunstar.
Definitely reminiscent of Rush, Curvavy, when he plays Lee Sin, which is a big compliment. Rush, specifically in solo queue, but even in competitive play, can be oppressive on the Lee Sin, and it's always fun to see Lee Sin players really get in there and mess up and play aggressively. He doesn't necessarily have the lanes to work with to do that, so it feels like he's almost on a solo pressure mission. Hecarim's never going to pressure a Gnar. It's cleanse Orianna, we don't need to talk about that. So if Curvavy's the one creating the pressure, then he's doing a great service for his team that needs time and items to really scale up to even skirmish, let alone team fight.
Yeah, and he will have at least a nominal amount of pressure in the bottom lane, but you can see Tucson already here setting up for the counter gank. They're anticipating that Lee Sin may be coming to this bottom side, considering how far pressed out the IM duo is. Tucson just going to back off, though, as the wave is reversing back towards their Tier 1 turret. And Tucson will just go back to farming in his own jungle. No gank opportunities. A ton of sentinels around for LZIM.
So Cube, mentioned a couple of times already, veteran Hecarim player, just even in terms of competitive players, put more games into Hecarim than I think any other top laner in the last month especially, has really been still favoring that champion. Always interesting to see how veteran players on a champion navigate these really horrible matchups. They're very well known. Everyone knows what Gnar can do in this matchup, what items he's going to go for, etc. Already throwing out any sort of Trinity Force hopes with double cloth armor. Is it going to be Ninja Tabi into Frozen Heart? Is that even going to be that helpful? Because honestly, if you see armor stacking, Expression can just look to max W instead. Just go for the pure auto attacks. I guess Frozen Heart does semi-double duty, but there's just so many options and item build paths for Expression to blow past Cube. So any information you get about a veteran player in a counter matchup, it's just intriguing to watch and gives more angles and thoughts to a champion that is on the fringes of the meta at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, to take some of these advantages, he's going to need even more jungle pressure than he's already gotten, but we see the wards coming through right now. IM dropping one behind the enemy red buff while they see the Lee Sin in the mid lane, so safely getting a level of control over that vision.
It's been pinged out though, so it seems like they have knowledge of where it is, or at least where they suspect a ward has been put.
Yeah, they suspect it. I don't believe they actually saw that ward being placed, but they are going to come through and clear it right now. There we go. Actually, Jelly getting low. Has to use the Summoner heal, and Jelly will get grabbed. It's not a lot of damage, though, as the culling quickly used, but Lantern for Sunstar prevents him from taking most of the damage. Now, is Curvavy going to face check this? Expression is nearly Mega Gnar. He has his ultimate. Dangerous times for a possible gank. And there's the Cocoon coming in. Expression, oh man, they walked into a double stun. There's the Onslaught of Shadows, but they take down Tucson anyway. And Expression now on the run. What can he do? He's not going to make it out. Double kill for Curvavy here in spite of the sheen There just wasn't enough damage coming in from IM, and in spite of the fact that they walked into a double Gnar stun.
It was crazy how good that looked for IM. It looked like Curvavy was slow on reacting. There was actually a lot of burst damage onto Cube before they even started the fight, but man, the re-engage was massive. And Expression is going for the very slow build into the Frozen Mallet, so with the lack of combat stats, they actually pull ahead in what should have been a lopsided 2v2 trade for IM. Look how long it is before Lee Sin finally reacts.
Wow, I'm very surprised that they actually managed to pull that off, but they focused the right target. Tucson didn't really have any HP with that Sheen building into the Rune Glaive, so once it's a 2v1, they're able to win that little battle.
And whether it's intentional or not, one of the big factors actually is that with the Onslaught of Shadows coming out, it killed all the little spiderlings, so Lee Sin held on to his Q, actually managed to hit an Elise, and hitting an Elise, specifically in spider form, is super hard to do with the spiderlings tanking your Q, but they pulled it off effectively. A really nice play from the Dark Wolves.
So counter gank there is successful, 1,500 gold. The advantage now for Dark Wolves in this game, and IM just can't make it work, and Cube again just getting further and further ahead in a matchup thanks to help from his jungler.
Worrying times for Expression. He needs that pickaxe, honestly. I think you focus the damage, and going the tank stats is, I think it's a misfire. It's still going to be the same item. I guess there's an outside chance of the Warmogs, but realistically it's going to be Frozen Mallet given what we know, but it was actually at a level disadvantage when that fight started. It was level 7 to level 6, but given the champions we're talking about, a level 6 Gnar in Mega Gnar form and an Elise, we thought it would be lopsided towards IM, and we're proven wrong.
Well, Cinderhulk Lee Sin will be the build from Curvavy here, so not building anything super aggressive. Went for the Sight Stone before even getting his enchant. So playing a little bit more of a defensive style, but he's making it work for him. Kyle will be handed over the blue buff right now. Frozen starting Abyssal this game. Not going to be too helpful in a split push, though.
Cube adjusting his build. He did start with the Shroud, but hey, throwing in that longsword. Trinity Force still coming eventually.
Of course, naturally. But he can get away with that right now, Expression. Not having the power to really control this lane. Instead, just moving back and trying to farm up right by his tier 1. Here we go, play again. Sawstar will get ripped out of the lantern, but hello, Curvavy, you're right there, and the burst, huge. Another kill for the Lee Sin, and they're going to transition this with the help of the teleport right into a dragon.
So Ignar actually walked into Lee Sin and still threw out the lantern, basically gifted the Callista on a silver platter. That was just mechanically poor from the support, or just poor awareness from the bot duo, and Dark Wolves find themselves with the lead again.
Well, I mean, what we can say is IM is trying to make plays right now when they have no idea where the Lee Sin in. Tu's going to wrap him up with a cocoon, but he has to flash to get out of the Braum concussive blows. I mean, they're just playing like there is no jungler. That last gank, they tried to make a play, but they didn't bother to ward up the lane, weren't expecting the counter gank from the Lee Sin, and this time around, they are not playing like Lee Sin could be in the river.
Did not think I would say this statement as Tucson puts out a pink ward that was always going to die instantly, but we might not be seeing IM in Champions next season. It's an early proclamation, but the change around from game 1 to the last 2 games, or at least the first 12 minutes here, it's been massive.
Yeah, it has been very big, and IM has to start getting concerned. I mean, it's not an overwhelming advantage yet, and fortunately for Incredible Miracle, there's a lot of gold on this Lee Sin, which is not going to be terribly useful in the late game, but it's another instance where Incredible Miracle really has to play for a late game stage if they want to stay relevant.
Let's not be too linear on discounting the Lee Sin's impact in the late game. Of course, the kit and the damage certainly falls off, but with the Cinderhulk and the percentage stack he's going to get in terms of health, if he just sits on Sonstar, who already wasn't killing any tanks in the previous game, if he just trivializes the effect of the Callista, maybe he's just doing his job in fights with that extra gold, and Callista is going by the Ruin King this time, which is, I think, objectively the best build for Callista at the moment, even irregardless of whether there's melee threats on the enemy team, but yeah, Direwolves, sorry, not Direwolves, that's the Australian team I cast earlier in the year, but the Dark Wolves in a good spot.
Dark, dire, you know, they're all sort of scary, lurking in the forest.
They are indeed. Almost feels like I'm going to create some sort of fantasy faux pas and compare Game of Thrones to another fantasy series, but I don't know about any other fantasy series, so I can't do that. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings guy.
Yeah, you're not. Oh, face check here from Curvavy. Expression is low, but about to hit that Mega Nard. There we see the Crescent Strike coming in. Frozen wants this kill. He's going to flash over the wall, and there you go. Lunar Rush and another strike will finish it off. Ignar is here. Cube on the run. They want to kill Tucson. They're going to pick it up with the Ignite, so they trade jungle for jungle. Some fancy dancing around, and Sonstar wants this one too. Chelly gonna get knocked around a little bit. Ignar doesn't have a follow-up hook or flay.
No culling available, so range damage from Lucian certainly at a premium. Kvavi far too aggressive in that situation. Needed to back out the moment, but still looked for a trade. Went aggressive. Hit at least Syndrome and taking the Q, and it's actually going to be punished a little bit, but no turret or objective to pick up.
Yeah, Frozen gets some nice shutdown gold, though, and that is a bit concerning. I suppose for the sake of Dark Wolves, it could have been worse if Expression had managed to pick that up, but, I mean, Expression really getting his turret chunked down to 50% already, and that is not what you expect from this matchup.
I mean, the build, as we're going to see the replay, Kvavi taking that Q, some very nice footwork, but was inevitably going to die with all the dives coming through from the other members. The fact that Cube got the exit kill was a really nice bonus for the Dark Wolves, but yeah, just coming back to the build, I mean, when you're going Ninja Tabi into Giant's Belt, even further delaying your Frozen Mallet.
There you go, nice flay, and Chelly still going to get some good damage down. Tucson now joining the fray, and Chelly will just walk back with a potion ticking underneath his turret. Sonstar, not a lot of mana, and nearly dying. No one, I guess, feeling like they should block the culling right there.
I'm surprised that Sonstar was confident enough not to heal in that situation. He was maybe 2 shots, perhaps even 1 away from dying. This series has been played around Frozen in the previous game and this game. He's got the shutdown gold, he's got decent items, his farm is always wonderful. He's a great mid laner, he's one of the reasons why he and Ignar were the ever-presence for this team, but they can continue to play around him, and Expression builds so damn defensively and delays the relevance of this Gnar counter pick versus Hecarim. I mean, Frozen's the big factor here. Can he make the enemy team pay? Because he's hitting his items at a good clip.
Yeah, he is, but he's got to start that split push, and with Expression losing his tower first in the Hecarim Gnar 1v1, he is in dire straits. We're going to need to get some wards around him so he can play aggressively once he gets the Frozen Heart and try and reverse this advantage that Cube has managed to acquire. Cube creeping up, though, on a Trinity Force, getting the parts for a Sheen before heading back into lane, and they just don't have the vision control to allow Expression to push forward right now.
Let's be clear, when you're still slowly piecing together a Frozen Mallet, now is not the time to contest Dragon. If you're going to go for this lane-focused build, I think you have to make the most of it. Okay, the flat health along with your Mega Gnar resist will be helpful in a team fight, but they opt into and lose a team fight around Dragon in 45 seconds time. The negative snowball for IM could be gaming.
Well, the nice thing is, he did go for the Giant's Belt first, so that could have left an open door to some earlier team fighting, but not used appropriately. Sonstar now just trying to clear out this bottom wave, has finished the Blade of the Ruined King.
I think his item timing's a lot better this game, so is a threat. Single target damage for now, but we all know the Hurricane's going to come in quite comfortably soon.
Okay, Diana falling back. They are going to see Tucson moving into the mid lane. They have sufficient wards right there. Keep one up for a few more seconds, and quick brush check with this spider, and a pink ward will be cleared right in the river once again. There's really not a lot the Gnar can do besides just back off at this stage.
It is fascinating that a team that's so good, or has a player that is so good at playing Hecarim, obviously play this comp very often, is so poor at the flank wards. They're just not big on the advanced warding, as Cube still awkwardly winning the 1v1 against Gnar, which will puzzle anyone, but there's some good vision around Dragon, but not the traditional flank wards we'd expect for the big Hecarim teleport engage.
Man, at every turn this game, Dark Wolves has had the better wards on the gank. They've already picked this up. Kvavi's waiting. They know that there's a possibility of another play coming in, but now with at least just recalling, Kvavi's just been one step ahead of Tucson all game so far.
And now it's the awkward scenario where you've been snowballed on as Elise, but you still go for the Rune Glaive, so it's very squishy compared to the tanky Lee Sin that has good base damage. Lee Sin never revealed himself. He actually hasn't been spotted out by a ward, so they have no information whatsoever as to Lee Sin's path.
Frozen going to get another blue buff for himself, and Frozen Mallet finally done, but Dark Wolves has their sights set on their second dragon of the game. Their dragon control in the last two has been dominant. We're going to see a hook come in for Kerbaby. Nice damage, poke coming down, but not going to be enough to take the dragon away, as Expression just not in a great position to TP in right now.
I feel like you pile on the dragon win condition, Monte Cristo. After in the previous game, the only dragon that IM was in position to be picked up was stolen by a volley. It's almost PTSD around the dragon for IM at this point, because that game has largely become unglued around the bot lane and the dragon area.
Just amazing to me that their advantages that they should have had out of this laning phase. And again, it really hasn't been a draft problem, I feel, in either of these games from Incredible Miracle. I really think they've been given the tools to succeed, but it's been the misplays that have sealed the deal for them, at least in the last one. They're starting to bounce back. If they can take this turret, they're going to be in a much better position when it comes to gold totals.
But let's be clear, Direwolves blind picked a Hecarim, which already on 515 is unheard of in the competitive scene, and then opted into the Orianna versus Diana matchup, specifically picking that Orianna for team comp rather than for the lane, which famously is won by Diana as we move forward to level 6 especially. First 5 levels good for Orianna, but Direwolves are opting into difficult lane matchups, but I guess it's experience because they're pulling them off.
They are, and this is where you have to start thinking about swapping lanes for IM. You just took out the bottom turret. Frozen is at 2 items right now, and the Frozen Mallet is done. So it's time for this 1-3-1 to begin in earnest and get that Kalista back into the mid side.
Only small argument you could see is that you wait for the Hurricane maybe to have the counter wave push against Orianna, who at this AP value has instant wave clear, but I think it's time to make the offensive move. It's time to unleash the Diana with Nashor's too, because if she's stuck in mids, trading far more than Orianna, who has so much defensive utility and still burst damage in the late game, you're just hurting yourself.
Yeah. No sign of that transition yet, though, as Sonstar just slowly moving through minion waves with his blade. You can see the big difference, though, obviously with the Gnar. Once you get that Frozen Mallet, you can just kite Hecarim forever. He doesn't have an immediate gap closer unless he uses his ultimate, and that is usually unwise.
Doesn't have the defensive utility of a Flash or Ghost, and then also with levels you get so much damage in your W, the percentage magic damage per third hit, that you just have to respect, and you can't be as overextended. This laning phase, Kyle's hit.
Nice cocoon. They're going to try and move on this one. Jelly actually going to get flayed back in. Box goes down, and Expression will pick up the kill, just roaming straight out of the top lane after putting on the pressure.
And Kyle could have used his cleanse, relied on his support for defensive utility, but now he falls down. Has both summoners, but feels like Kyle could have made more. Didn't use his ultimate either, despite some heavy grouping from IM.
Playing it perhaps a little bit too defensively. Ignar, Sonstar, and Tucson back for round 2 in a pink warded brush. Here we go. There's the flash, but quickly dodged out of by the Lucian. Wrong target there from the Elise player.
Didn't draw teleport either. Cube just walked down. No dragon to fight over, so he's going to go pick up farm, but 1 kill. Not a big deal for the Dark Wolves.
No, not as long as it doesn't turn into anything else. And Kalista once again moving towards that bottom side, getting very close to that Hurricane now. We'll be getting it pretty shortly as soon as the shop comes through. Frozen just sticking to his guns in the mid lane.
If he does pick up the Hurricane and doesn't rotate to mid, that's when we really have to call out poor rotational play from IM, but it's slightly understandable when he doesn't have the range wave. We can just watch, we watched previously, how long it takes him to get through a minion wave. It's still comically long at this present point.
Quickly approaching that threshold, and Kyle, the blue buff, be happy with what he can do. And here's the recall from Kalista, and this is the moment where we see exactly where Frozen and Sonstar are going to go on the map. Gnar now actually transferred into the bottom side, and Kalista, oh, what? Okay. Going into top.
Feel like Gnar should be rooted into whatever minion wave or lane the Hecarim is in, especially with so much gold spent on basically shutting down the Hecarim, but...
I mean, at this point, this is rather silly because if you have the Diana in the bottom lane, you can just use your support out of the mid lane to start warding up with your jungler and start really getting that 1-3-1 activated. Cube is really far overextended though. There's the E, devastating charge already used. Can they box in the pony here?
Probably not.
There we go. Gonna get 1 hit off. Frozen in the enemy jungle right now, but Gnar pushing up onto a tier 2. Frozen on a desperate escape attempt through the enemy base.
Darkle's really over pursuing this
is
kill onto Frozen. This
Not
is
good.
gonna get him, of course, is Frozen on the enemy side of the jungle.
Are
but
they?
Maybe not.
Expression right there. Expression near Meganar form. They're going to try and get it. There's the Chilling Smite. Frozen still dodging out. He's got nothing to Lunar Rush to. And he's going to Lunar Rush actually to Kyle. There's a Shockwave missed. And a stun coming in. They do kill him in the end, but Expression takes a trip out on the Lantern before getting stunned by the Braum passive, and just a little bit more right there. But, I mean, they used a whole hell of a lot to get that, and they're going to lose a lot of minion wave onto the turrets.
Yeah, they lost a lot of pressure in top lane. They got the turret. They managed to keep pushing out, and Expression no outplaying the Frozen Mallet slow. And wow, Dark Wolves over pursuing a Diana that should just been left to back, lost them so much global objectives, and bit of a comedy of errors for the challenger first seed.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what we saw in the Challenger playoffs from them, is they do overcommit to kills a lot of the time, and Kyle now has the potential to be caught out. Here comes the TP, and Diana just going to zoom in on the home guards, gets the flank in, and Kyle's, I don't even know why you would flash there, you're just dead. And the double Lunar Rush with the Moonfall will clear him out. No chance of escape, and now the Baron, the target for IM here at 25 minutes.
Now, a steal around an objective played a big part in Dark Wolves, closing out that game as confident as they did previous game. It's all on Kavebi. He is actually well ahead in terms of items, but doesn't even get a chance to steal.
I don't even understand how the Rend is not actually finishing these objectives for LZIM. That's the second time where we haven't seen Kalista actually secure a dragon or a bear. Hi, Ignar. Would you like some turret hits?
Turret was so low that the pit pressure might have been fine, but neither team covering themselves in glory in Game 3.
Now they're going to transition this immediately into a dragon.
All of the gold leads in the bank, so these actually are very even teams in terms of items, but Dark Wolves playing defensive in terms of their positioning, understandable. They still don't have any aggressive wards. That hasn't been their modus operandi. Their defensive vision around lanes has been wonderful. You called them out on that previously, but when it comes to offensive wards to enable the Hecarim to do things, they've been at a premium.
Yeah, and now we have a situation where IM has the items they need to split push, and they have the Baron. So in theory, IM should be able to get probably all the tier 2s out of this Baron.
They've thrown the playbook out a couple of times this series, Monte Cristo, so the theory might stay in the book this time.
It might. No TP, so Diana remaining in mid lane, at least for the moment.
Lucian has not been a big champion for Charlie this series. Fell behind in Game 1. Now, Infinity Edge into the parts of... What even is that visual bug? The parts of a very slow Phantom Dancer. This Lucian well behind in terms of items.
What is this Gromp doing?
It's really it's really, really angry.
It's not actually healing up right there. Go back to the Gromp.
Get him to the Gromp.
I want to watch the Gromp. All right. All right. Well,
on my screen, the Gromp was doing hilarious.
yeah, not on the actual screen that you guys were seeing, though, but it was just shooting everybody on the map.
Sniping.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to catch up right now. And the pressure coming in to the mid side and the top lane.
Not that much pressure, though. They don't have that many ranged attacks. Oh, with the hook, though.
Maybe looking for a kick right there. Doesn't see what he's looking for, but Expression just chipping away with his ranged auto attack ever so slowly. And getting some work done onto the tier 2. Kalista moving back to push out the bottom lane, and they will be snagging themselves a fancy little blue buff in the meantime for Frozen. Tusen's very patient. There we go.
Subservient to his mid laner, as every good jungler is these days. I mean, Expression's just really reflecting how strong this matchup is, because he had a poor laning phase and built super defensively, but you throw a Frozen Mount and some tank stats in, there's nothing Hecarim can do.
Okay, well, here comes the full pressure. They've finally gotten control over the side waves so that they can put on the maximum amount, and I am actually executing this very well. Baron buff no longer a factor, but they are going to get at least 2 of the tier 2s.
Breaking the base will be more difficult. Maybe if they can pick up a second Baron and neutralize Oriana's fairly impressive wave clear. they'll be able to do it. But with a Diana especially, split pushing is always going to be the name of the game. Doesn't have teleport off himself, but moment he picks it up, there's just so many headaches, so many macro objectives for Dark Wolves to be able to factor in. Frozen's actually teleporting back on a ward.
Whoop. Gonna tap him there. Sonic Wave.
Tap that Diana.
Tap that Diana. I'm sure that's what you prefer, Bob Smedley.
It was said. I put the words out there.
Frozen decided to stick around a little bit longer. Well, this game, I think you're right. Just the Baron is probably going to be necessary to actually close.
I mean, game one showed us that Dark Wolves, they struggle when there's so many macro objectives to consider, and most teams would in these double teleport, Diana split pushing metas, but there's just so much for Dark Wolves to stay on top of that you have to feel that being a challenger team, they're just not going to be up to the stead of being able to deal with the fiercely macro game rather than micro game being played right now by IM.
Yeah, you really can't prepare for this when it comes to solo queue very well, and it takes a long time as a professional player in a scrim environment to really acclimate yourself to this level of team play. So it is an easier, I would say, way to break less experienced teams.
It's just one of those scenarios where IM, like game one, have full court press on. They have access to the Raptors, the Wolves, every camp that Dark Wolves have to pick up, and the war of attrition just can't be won by Dark Wolves. You can't wait out when your access to minions, your access to a real gold income, it's just not there.
Nope. 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 Well, a couple more minutes until the next Baron. I'm going to do what they can here, but no need to overcommit here in the mid lane. Especially just cleaning out some of those pink wards. And Diana now pushing up, but this is what you got to do. Just maintain your vision control, maintain your jungle control until something useful becomes available to you.
Honestly, you're waiting for a mistake, because theoretically you're not going to actually split push an inhibitor turret. That's very, very difficult to pull off. So with the easy objectives barring the mid lane one pulled off, you're just looking for someone to miss position around mid and to rush that last outer turret, because breaking the base, very, very difficult to do in a split push.
Yeah, especially without Baron. So 45 seconds up until our next Dragon, minute 10 for the Baron right now, and it's just going to be a waiting game. We'll see if IM wants to go back for another shop before they start to group. One would think they would.
The grand waiting game.
It's very exciting, isn't it?
Yep, definitely is.
But I mean, this is more and more of what we see League of Legends becoming these days, having powerful split push with all of these more carry-oriented top laners has become pretty crucial.
I choose to interpret that as a backhanded compliment to Strategic League of Legends rather than your optimistic rotations, yay, kind of comment.
I like split pushing. It's hard to do well.
You like just everyone pushing for a while, waiting for a mistake?
And, you know, there's a counterplay in terms of players collapsing. You have to have the right vision to do it. It pleases me.
You say it in a way that sounds interesting, but I know the words that are coming out of your mouth, and they're not that interesting.
Yes, they are.
No.
I like it. I just want more Elixir of Ruin to be used. That's what I want.
Which one is that? Is that the one that gives the tenacity and the...
It gives more damage to turrets.
Ah, yes, that one.
The split pushing potion.
Split pushing potion.
I like that one. I think it's underutilized, personally.
I know you were a big fan of the AP Elixir and Thornmail, but now you don't need that, Monte Cristo. You just build more armor and you do sick damage with your Thornmail.
I liked the Elixir of Sorcery with the Thornmail. I thought it was funny.
But now it scales with armor, so you don't need the gimmicky 25 damage every, what, like 6 seconds or whatever.
Hey, if you have nothing else to buy, Papa Smithy.
In the previous meta, without the Thornmail damage scaling, I agree it was fun. Speaking of fun, I am finally feel safe enough to start the Baron. Cravey knows what's up.
What do you want from
So are we going to see another 50-50-ish Baron?
No, I mean, he has a million Callista Spears in him. Oh. Okay, there we go. Will be secured by the Ren this time. And we do see the Hackremold used to escape right after the Thresh Hook lands. And no follow-up, and so now is the time for Incredible Miracle.
Split push.
To split push. Frozen going to take that quick recall, head back to base, and Expression setting up his wave in advance. Void Staff and Zhonya's Hourglass.
I like this play though. Look, they're finally going to be aggressive. They're really piling on the pressure with the teleport into mid lane. I think the dive is dangerously close to being initiated. Without Expression Group, they don't really have a tank, though, so it's difficult to pull off, but always like it when the triggers at least looks like it's going to be fired, but no, I told a lie. Sunstar sees a massive minion wave, thinks, ooh, 200 gold.
They have to go get it right now, Bob Smithy.
Get it now. Doesn't even have an Avarice Blade. It's not an Nasus either, but still plenty of time.
The GP was banned, so
That's
we
true.
don't even get to see that. I just like to see the kegs just blow up an entire wave at once and then like 300 extra gold appear.
Which of the kegs are the surprise keg, the pre-placed keg, the keg you placed earlier? The kegs. I don't know, it's Nasus. Whenever I'm playing Nasus, whenever I see a big minion wave, I think of the stacks. Of course, they take
Why are
forever
you
to
playing
get.
Nasus?
Because it's really good in solo queue. Nobody knows how to end a game.
Nasus is the most boring champion to play. You're literally just sitting there queuing minion waves the entire game.
Look, why do people play Cookie Clicker? Why do people play all these games? It's fun to see numbers go up, Monte Cristo. And when you see those stacks above 300, you're like, oh, baby, I'm doing it this game. Then you get kited and you're sad. But
I've never played Cookie Clicker, so I don't know.
I haven't either, but I hear good things from people that like numbers going up.
Okay, so right now, just moving forward. The split push is going through. Nice culling. Sonstar will be able to heal up a lot of that, though, on the minion wave.
Sunstar's almost died to culling a lot of times this game. Calculated might be the word he'd use, but foolhardy's the one I'll choose.
It's been, I mean, to be fair to Chelly, he has had some pretty on-point cullings, hitting nearly every shot.
Need to be fair to Chelly and Jelly. The best duo name. Right up there with Piglet and Pooh.
Okay, oh, that's just an instant death off of a Thresh hook. The burst damage, far too much for the Lucian to handle. It's out of position. The next hook not going to be quite so on target, but they will be able to crack this base and take the inhibitor. They may be able to see how far they can get with this. They do have a lot of turret damage with this particular composition.
Especially in his group, so dive players are suddenly more open. Now in Mega Enough, I'm just zoning their out. It's going to be at minimum a second mid inhibitor, and maybe the game.
Yeah, maybe the game, depending on how far they want to push. It looks like they're not going to take any risks. 10 seconds for the Lucian.
It's actually quite hard to split push in the enemy base, so they probably should back away and teleport back.
Yeah, can't really break people up when they're all defending the Nexus. They're going to go for number 3, though. And it was already low. Expression actually did a lot of work on that top side already.
Fade away Q was very nice.
Up there's the Lee Sin kick, but Ignar not going to be the target they want. Here comes Cube on the TP, gets into the back line, and there's a shockwave, hits 2, but only Tucson and Expression. Meanwhile, Oriana just melts immediately. Kerbaby going to be frozen, second kill, and here we go, 2-man stun, triple kill right there, but that's not going to be a penta. We already have Kalista taking one. There's a quadra for Frozen to end this game. And they are going to be able to take out this last turret. They don't have minion waves ready to go, so they're going to have to just tank the Nexus turrets.
If they can do this, Expression's going to fall very low. They're going to get at least 1, but 2 might be tricky. Let's see how the trade tanking goes. Tucson can, of course, repel to drop aggro. They should be able to finish the game. Still 10 seconds till anyone spawns.
Yeah, that's going to be it. And they will surround the Nexus and take game number 2, putting them on match point to make it back into Champions.
So with a game and about 15 minutes of just poor play behind them, Longzhou IM returned to their game 1 form, played much more impressively in the second half. Frozen Mallet being completed was the real big turning point, as suddenly Hecarim couldn't overextend, couldn't create pressure. It was unique in that Hecarim took the first turret and kept pushing, but when he was held in check, so were the Dark Wolves, and now 2-1, a comfortable lead for IM.
Yeah, Dark Wolves, very strange team. We know the emphasis they put on the Hecarim, but they don't actually ward so the Hecarim can maximize his advantage. It's a bit odd.
It's a fun thing where they ward smartly defensively. They set off a lot of ganks with smart wards, but never that forward ward for the Hecarim engage.
And it's not the synergy not there between the jungle and support to roam efficiently to place those down. So we'll see if they go with the Hecarim for a 4th game in a row in just a few minutes when we get back. Until then, I am just going to be looking to neatly wrap up this series. Can Frozen have another good game on Diana like he has in their 2 wins so far?
It's on a game more than we might have expected, but I am definitely in the driving seat coming into the 4th match.
Well, Just a few more minutes and we'll get into game 4 and see if we have the deciding match in this promotion match.